So we'll just start with this little prayer. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless confusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, we have a quorum. Look at there, Swayam showed up too, so how lovely. Okay. Jeffrey, I think you read It Acts Like Love last time, and you read it so nicely. Could you read it again for us, please?
Oh, I would be delighted. It acts like love. It acts like love, music. It reaches toward the face, touches it, and tries to let you know his promise that all will be okay. It acts like love, music, and tells the feet, you do not have to be so burdened. My body is covered with wounds this world made, but I still longed to kiss him. Even when God said, could you also kiss the hand that caused each scar? For you will not find me until you do. It does that. Music helps us to forgive. It acts like love. It acts like love, music. It reaches toward the face, touches it, and tries to let you know his promise that all will be okay. It acts like love, music, and tells the feet, you do not have to be so burdened. My body is covered with wounds this world made, but I still longed to kiss him, even when God said, could you also kiss the hand that caused each scar? For you will not find me until you do. It does that. Music helps us to forgive.
Thank you, Jeffrey. For you will not find me until you do. This is the thing about the knots of our heart. You know, K-N-O-T-S, the knots of our heart. Until we can let them go and truly forgive, we're blocked. And it's so sweet what she says about music, because I found it to be absolutely true. Whether it be Tuba Skinny or Gustavo Dudamel conducting Beethoven, it really does reach toward you and try to communicate that promise. Anything else anyone would like to say?
Just this idea of music too. Someone, I don't know who it was, described music as being what language and words wish they could be. Thing about music, which, you know, oftentimes, especially with the ones you were mentioning, there aren't words, right? But it stirs us, right? It moves us in this primal way, right? We can, you know, we can't quite understand it because there's no words, so there's not an elaborate story, right? There's a mood, there's a feeling, right? That's, I think, what's so remarkable with music is it hits the body, right? You know, it really pulls you into that presence that we talk about.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love the stanza. It acts like love music and tells the feet, you don't have to be so burdened.
Right. And when we're unburdened, we dance, right? When we
Right.
let all this stuff go, we feel free and we move, you know, and
Right.
it feels light and beautiful.
And then she follows that stanza with the stanza about the body being so covered with bruises and wounds, with wounds that this world made. She sure is a master poet. Anything else from anyone before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I can definitely actually feel her poem because we have been part of a music group for almost the last 20 years.
Uh-huh.
We have met once a month, and probably in the 20 years, we've had 2 or 3 days that we couldn't conduct. And even through COVID, it went on in Zoom, and now most of us have become like a family. I mean, supporting each other, and there is no restriction on the, kind of songs. It's English, different Indian languages, and devotional and movie songs, and it definitely has help bring out the love. And also I've realized that many of the movie songs in the Indian movie industry are so spiritual, not just the bhakti. Many of them have Vedantic concepts. So and then somehow that touches your heart when you hear the same thing in a music form, and the poetry, the lyrics. So there is I mean, no words to describe how music can help us to overcome a lot of things.
You're absolutely right, dear. And Hollywood does the same thing, whether it be Somewhere Over the Rainbow or You Have a Friend in Me. There's spiritual messages in a lot of the songs that are in Hollywood movies too.
Yeah. Actually, I was just thinking about Sound of Music when we were driving today for some reason, that nothing comes from nothing and nothing ever will.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the beginning of the song, but it's when the two of them fall in love, and
Mm-hmm.
they sing a song in their garden. Um, it's so yeah. I mean, here's to music. I don't have a
Here's to
glass,
music.
but
Well, I think it was mentioned last week, but it's worth mentioning again. Vivekananda said, music is the highest form of art, and for those who understand it, the highest form of worship. And I think you just said it, Swayam, that you can hear that sacredness even in songs that might otherwise be be thought of as just an ordinary Hollywood or Bollywood song.
sometimes even the songs that in the movie setting are a human, love between the hero and heroine. If we just replace that as our song to God, it still fits
Oh
the
yes,
love.
yeah. As a matter of fact, Cindy Craven has a song that she wrote that every song is a love song.
Hmm.
Anything else from anyone before we move on?
I just wanted to add to what you were saying, Shankara, that phrase, or I don't know just who said it, if it's in the Bible or what, but when you sing, you pray twice.
Yes.
I mean,
Hmm.
yeah. So
Mm, beautiful.
I also see in the second part the importance of forgiveness, right? Which is, I
Yes.
think, can be a hard lesson to learn for, at least for myself. You realize this, this idea of burden and this unburdening that comes sometimes with music, but that's all well and good. But it says, for you will not find me until you do. This idea of forgiveness, of kissing the hand that may have caused you pain, and being able to forgive them and see that it, there's something to be grown from it, right? From the mud comes the lotus. And I think in my personal life, forgiveness has been really critical and just my own peace and my own well-being, being able to forgive and let go and still move forward and be, not close off, but stay open and loving, and forgiveness is so important.
Well, you just said something very, very deep that most people really, I say this from conversations with so many people over the years. Most people really don't get that forgiveness is as much about them as it, if not more about them than it is for the person that they're forgiving. Because it unburdens you, as you related to those words. It unburdens you. When you forgive, you're free of whatever that knot of the heart was. You're free of it. And so then you can dance or kiss the hand or kiss the beloved. But as long as you're imprisoned behind those knots of the heart, those unforgiven moments, its progress is all but impossible.
I don't know if this is possible in all circumstances, but I was having a conversation with my sister, and she was having some, anger over past the things that she felt like people had done to her, and I was telling her, or try to think, I mean, if they've not done all bad, so when they are telling something and you're getting frustrated, just try to bring your mind to the good things they have done. Or if they're arguing with you, don't pay attention to the argument, but try to go to the times that you have not had an argument. See if that will help. So I don't know if that's a strategy to in the process of growth in forgiving.
Well, yes, and you might just send her a copy of this poem. You might just send her this poem in an email and say, here's something that relates to the conversation we had. Thanks for bringing that up, dear. Yes, we hear it all the time from people about how they're blocked by their anger and their feelings of frustration with other people. Heidi, would you like to read The Moon Was Once a Moth?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The moon was once a moth. The moon was once a moth who ran to her lover. They embraced, and she ultimately passed away with such a smile everywhere on her body. Over a period of time, her wings fell to the earth and sanctified the meadows. Angels came and buried the limbs that touched his mouth. The moon was once a moth who ran to God. They entwined. Now just her luminous soul remains, and we gaze at it at night. The moon was once a moth. The moon was once a moth who ran to her lover. They embraced, and she ultimately passed away with such a smile everywhere on her body. Over a period of time, her wings fell to the earth and sanctified the meadows. Angels came and buried the limbs that touched his mouth. The moon was once a moth who ran to God. They entwined. Now just her luminous soul remains, and we gaze at it at night.
That's quite a story.
I mean, really.
You know, and the thing that has struck me over and over in reading this book is that we have to take seriously what these people say and not just say, well, this is some sort of allegory or mythology. They really mean something by these words. And it isn't for us to, at least from here, the feeling is, it isn't for us to try to mine out the particular meaning of it. But what is the feeling that she's trying to communicate to us by telling us this story? What is she trying to tell us with these words? Because words are so clumsy, really. You know? The moon was once a moth. What does a moth do? A moth flies to the flame, and if the flame or the light is behind a glass, it'll just bang itself against the glass. But if it's actually a candle or an open flame, they'll immolate themselves. So, what is the feeling that anyone else gets from this poem? What is she trying? What is the feeling meaning that she's trying to communicate?
For me, something I jotted down when I read it was light gazing at light. Something about the moon and the moth and like it's something that appears separate, but in reality is one, like light pouring into light or water pouring into water. This sense of it's there as the moon, it's there as the moth, it's there as the lover, as the embrace, as the smile, as the body, as the wing, as the earth, as the meadow, as the angel, as the limb, the mouth, the God, the entwining, the luminous, the soul, the gaze, the night. It's just absolute, right? It's everywhere. And it's luminescent, and it's what is allowing this knowing to take place, you know, and it's just in every little crevice, no matter how you spin it, you know, because even you said earlier, I thought it was funny, I wrote it down, you said whoever is there behind the words about the Zoom call, how there's the words, and I thought that was fun, you know, because it's all these words, right? But what's behind the words, you know, and it's, to me, what's behind the words is a blank canvas. Like what's behind the paint, you know, it can appear so many forms and colors, but this idea of the blank canvas and holding it all, you know, no matter how you describe it, it's light gazing at light.
That was a beautiful litany that you just spun off there, Jeffrey. You know, seizing on the operative words in the poem. It was beautiful. Light gazing at light. There is only one, and somehow it gazes at itself.
Yes.
So she uses this story. I'm not going to say it's a metaphor because I don't know what it is she's trying to tell us. You know, the moon was once a moth who ran to her lover and was destroyed by that embrace. I mean, they embraced, and she ultimately passed away with such a smile everywhere on her body. And this is said, this moth image is used by a number of these poets in this book. Meister Eckhart uses it also. And I mean, I remember a poem of Eckhart's that does it. Somehow this dying before you die, this self-immolation in the embrace of the divine. And this idea that the death of the living body of the moon somehow sanctified the earth. Her wings fell to the earth and sanctified the meadows. The angels came and buried the limbs that touched his mouth. Bah.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
what comes to my, I guess, imagination or heart, that if a small creature like moth can become a luminous moon by reaching God and pass away with a smile, so too can we, who I assume have a greater ability to reason, think, and do all those things. So how high and how luminous we can get, and
Very
similarly pass away with a smile.
And the only thing that struck me a little in what you said, dear, is whether we do it by reasoning and thinking, or whether we do it through just the way a moth is drawn to a flame, which is anything but reasoned. It's simply drawn to the flame. And as she said, the moon was once a moth who ran to God, they entwined. So it's being consumed by God somehow. All of that outward being consumed by God. And now just her luminous soul remains, and we gaze at it at night. So all the outwardness is not just burned up, but parts of it sanctify existence itself, sanctify the earth.
It's almost as though the moth was sacrificed for all of us to gaze at night and for the greater good, for all of us to enjoy.
Thank you, Heidi. I think that definitely is a feeling embedded in this poem.
Yeah, that's the feeling I get.
That the moth was sacrificed herself, not necessarily with the idea that it was for the good of the rest of us, but that was the result. That was the outcome, the karma. Anything else?
Well, and I love too in the beginning where, you think a smile on someone's face, but when she passed away, she had a smile everywhere on her body. That's just so beautiful, I mean, we could just have our whole body smile.
Yes.
Just a thought.
We can do that in Shavasana if we really get into it.
Right. Yes. Animals probably do it better than we do, right? Humans.
Oh, you watch a dog or a cat. Yes, they can smile with their whole body.
They're just twitching, or they're into it.
I used to have a companion, a fur person companion named Adorable Dora. And that dog didn't just wag her tail, which was just a stub. We didn't do that. It was done before we rescued her. But she wagged her whole body. I mean, from the tip of her nose to that stub of a tail, she would wag her whole body.
Yes.
And, everywhere on her was a smile. Yeah, beautiful, Heidi. Good. Her name really was Adorable Dora. She lived with a companion, a male dog, whose name was Berlioz Saint Chow. He was a mix of a Saint Bernard and a Chow. So we called him Bear, but his full name was Berlioz Saint Chow.
Berlioz Saint.
So, anything else from anyone before we move on to the next one? Okay, Swayam, would you be so good as to read a vase?
Oh, absolutely. A vase. I am always holding a priceless vase in my hands. If you asked me about the deeper truths of the path and I told you the answers, it would be like handling sacred relics to you. But most have their hands tied behind their back. That is, most are not free of the events their eyes have seen and their ears have heard and their bodies have felt. Most cannot focus their abilities in the present and might drop what I said. So I'll wait. I don't mind waiting until your love for all makes luminous the now. A vase. I'm always holding a priceless vase in my hands. If you asked me about the deeper truths of the path and I told you the answers, it would be like handling sacred relics to you. But most have their hands tied behind their back. That is, most are not free of the events their eyes have seen and their ears have heard and their bodies have felt. Most cannot focus their abilities in the present and might drop what I said. So I'll wait. I don't mind waiting until your love for all makes luminous the now. So, the way, what struck me is this is kind of like mindfulness, be in the moment, otherwise, you're going to miss priceless words of wisdom or a truth that can come to you from, the saints. So focus, and then when we stay in the present, that's when we can reach beyond the entanglement in the senses, and the love will flourish.
Yes, making luminous the now. This poem so much reminds me of a section of Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, in which it starts, houses and rooms are full of perfumes. That's the section if you want to go and find it. Houses and rooms are full of perfumes. And it's, yeah, just that this, be like handing sacred relics to you, but you may have your hands tied behind your back. And so they're not free of the events their eyes have seen, their ears have heard, and their bodies have felt. Which, of course, in Sanskrit is samskaras. So here she does seem to be using the vase as a metaphor. But what does a vase hold? A vase holds a bouquet of beautiful flowers, or in this case, beautiful truths. Anything else from anyone, please?
Well, I love that it's a vase, right? Because it is something that holds, or, you know, it's empty and it's available and open, right? So I think it's very intentional that she used something like a vase or a bowl. It's sort of the context. And it can
Right.
hold beautiful flowers, but it can hold other things as well. But well, I forgot what I was going to say there.
Well, it
I do
happens.
like the vase. I like the idea of this this openness, right? That's all she says. I am always holding a priceless vase, and it's right there, right? It's always right there, And when you think about how we look out of our eyes, we're kind of like vases, right? We're just kind of open, and we can see beauty and we can see all kinds of things, but we're built wide open. We don't see our own faces. We're built looking out and open to behold, right? We're really beholding everything, always. We can't get outside of it. But yeah, I like the use of the vase.
Yeah. Yeah, you use the word vision or seeing, and she says most cannot focus their abilities in the present. That focus is a vision idea. And then she says, then they might drop what I said. If you drop it, what happens? The vase breaks. So I'll wait. I don't mind waiting until your love for all makes luminous the now. So she gives us what she has to offer. Then she tells us what the impediments are. And then she tells us how to resolve it. Love all in the now. The same message that she got in the poem before, saying you have to love everything, including the hands that caused the wounds and scars on your body.
Yes, she's very patient, isn't she?
Yes.
So I'll wait.
Well, this is the message that we get again and again in this book, that the realized soul and that which they have realized, the beloved, or however you want to characterize it, is endlessly patient. Endlessly patient. I mean, it's, as Hafiz says, that beloved and the one who has realized the beloved, see, as he says, every thought is but an innocent step on the path. Every thought. The dark ones, the bright ones, all of them. He includes them all in that poem. Every thought is an innocent step on the path. So they're very patient, yes.
They have infinite time to wait.
Yes. Well, infinite time and no time are the same, aren't they? There's no time for someone who is immersed in the infinite. The clock, the hands on the clock do not move.
Yeah, what's that saying? When the student is ready, the
Right.
teacher will appear.
Right.
And I like your love for all. It makes me go back to the forgiveness, right? Like you mentioned,
Yes,
of the hand.
exactly.
It's not love for just like the great things that happened, but it's again pointing to that allness, the absoluteness of it,
Right.
the unconditional.
And she says, I have the answers. I have them here in this vase. But if I gave them to you, but if I told you the answers, it would be like handing sacred relics to you.
And you do find that when sometimes, I'll try to engage in this kind of conversation with people who might not be as open to these kinds of conversations.
Right.
And it is kind of like their ears and eyes aren't ready for that kind of conversation. They get very like, oh, this is making me uncomfortable. Like maybe their ego feels a little off balance, or what is he saying? This seems, there's some idea they have about, in their ears and in their eyes. And it can seem like, you want to sort of offer that piece or guide them in the right direction towards, something that's going to be more promising in the end. But sometimes they're just not ready for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeffrey, not in the least.
And you can't force it. You can't pull their hands from behind their back and give them the vase and say, here, the vase, you're a vase, I'm a vase, we're all a vase. Life.
No, you can't do that.
They're not ready. They're not ready.
And this is what my teacher told me. Don't do that with people.
Oh,
and
no.
He didn't use these words, but he said, what it amounts to in words that I'll say is, you're disturbing their psychic homeostasis.
Mm.
We all have our homeostasis of both physical and mental and psychic. It's really not a separate thing. They're all one homeostasis. But you're disturbing their homeostasis, and it makes them, as you said, very uncomfortable. And I love the image in this poem of people with their hands not just behind their back, but tied behind their back. They're tied behind their back by all of these things that they cannot be rid of. These sights they've seen, the things they've heard, the things that have happened to their bodies. They're not free of events their eyes have seen and their ears have heard and their bodies have felt. And this is just the very definition of karma. They're not free of their karma. And so they're going to be held back by it. Anything else from anyone about this one? So I wait. I don't mind waiting until your love for all makes luminous the now. Beautiful. So does Nira or Shanti, do you have the book? Would you like to read a poem? This next one? Okay. Jeffrey, we'll just ask you to read.
Oh, absolutely. Abreast in the sky, I hear talk about the famous. I hear talk about different cities. The most intimate events of families come to my ears. I hear about temples and mosques and saints. All that can be said, I have heard. All that can be wanted, I have seen. My interest in this world has waned, though not because I am depressed. A fish in a bowl I was, a bottom feeder, but now I nurse upon a breast in the sky. A breast in the sky. I hear talk about the famous. I hear talk about different cities. The most intimate events of families come to my ears. I hear about temples and mosques and saints. All that can be said, I have heard. All that can be wanted, I have seen. My interest in this world has waned, though not because I am depressed. A fish in a bowl I was, a bottom feeder. But now I nurse upon a breast in the sky.
Those images of limitation and freedom. I was a fish in a bowl, a bottom feeder. Talk about a metaphor for limitation.
Mm.
And now I feed upon a breast in the sky.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I was struck by this line. My interest in this world has waned, though not because I'm depressed. And then I was a bottom feeder, but now I nurse upon a breast in the sky. So she found something far better than whatever was in the world, that she had heard everything, seen everything.
Right. Well, again,
She was not running away.
it's almost like Whitman had read Rabia, although I don't think that's true. But you know, the scripture says truth is one, sages call it by many names. But once again, this litany with which she starts, I hear talk about the famous, I hear talk about different cities, the most intimate events of families come to my ears. All these, again, if you read that portion of Song of Myself that I suggested, it's some of it is almost word for word here. But he says that it is no, and he says, I know all that, but it is not the me myself. Apart from the pulling and hauling, I am. Anything else from anyone about this one?
Yeah, I would love to reach towards God more, because I can see that it's more precious, and not because I want to be, I'm frustrated or hate the world and want to like kind of run away.
Right. It's just that, all those things that she mentions that she's heard about and experienced. She says, my interest in the world has waned, not because I am depressed, but because I've found something far greater, which is not to disparage the life of the world. If you remember, we go back to her poem about slicing potatoes.
You know, and I think it points to how oftentimes we live in our descriptions of things. We live in our definitions of things. We live in our limitations. We feel comfortable when we know what something is, right? If we can name it, we can tame it. I know what that is. You're this. right? And that doesn't satisfy, right? I mean, it's not like reading a story about eating an orange is not the experience of eating an orange.
Nope.
I could describe it in the most beautiful language. It's not going to come close to eating the orange. So I think that the breast in the sky, this like, it points again to that, you know, it's like a moon or something that is the luminous now that she talks about in her other poem.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it's always available, right? It's not, I think sometimes we can get it in our head that it's something that you have to do as a limited person. You have to achieve something, and then you'll get it the way you get a prize when you play skeet ball and get enough tickets. You know, right? It's always just recognizing, oh, now, here, oh, this, amazing, right? And not getting caught in that.
I can't talk now. I'm in a class.
Just and not getting caught up in those labels, which oftentimes weren't even labels that we chose for ourselves.
Right.
You know, we learn this language, right? We could call the body lots of things. We can call it a woozle or you know, it's a word, it's a signifier, right? It's just
Right.
it's just something it can be helpful, right? But it doesn't give you the taste of whatever this reality is, which we can't really, it's really indescribable, right? We know it's here, but the minute we start trying to hang a hat on it, you just can't. It's too infinite. You can't put a hat on it. Infinite, right? It's infinite.
Right.
Like it just doesn't work, you know. But I think the brain really wants to like figure this out. The brain, the limited person, the Jeff wants the enlightenment, wants to, it's like, what is this? Like you want to get it. It becomes another thing to obtain, another thing that
Right.
once you have, then I'll be happy. Then
Right.
I'll live in bliss forever.
Right.
You know, when it's yeah, no, it does make you think.
Again, referring to Vivekananda, you know, he says, this world is a Tantalus's hell.
Mm.
If we think about Tantalus, he was always grabbing for it and just missing it. Just missing it. And what Vivekananda says is, you know, and of course it's said over and over in this book too, just sit quietly and it'll come to you.
Mm.
It'll come to you. Because it, as Hafiz says, God gave the world a great truth, a sublime truth. God gave the world a sublime truth when he sang, each soul completes me. So, you know, you're absolutely right, Jeffrey, from the perspective that that this place represents here. We can learn, but what we're really learning is to be quiet and
Yeah.
and see what's self-evident by being quiet.
And has always been and always will be and can never be anything but. It's, you know, so it's just that, it's just seeing through the tricks of the mind in so many ways.
Yes. Well, Jill Bolte Taylor has a new book out. For those of you who don't know Jill Bolte Taylor, she's the neuroanatomist who had a massive stroke in her left hemisphere that left her completely without language and without her left brain skills. But when that happened, she discovered there was a whole other personality within herself that was neglected because of the focus on what was going on in the left hemisphere. And now if you ask her who she is, she says, I am a being as big as the universe.
Mm.
And being, of course, is a verb. I am a being as big as the universe. And she's written a new book. Her first book about the experience of that stroke was called My Stroke of Insight. My Stroke of Insight. Her new book is called Whole Brain Living. And she talks very, very much about what you just described, Jeffrey, as the function of the left limbic system and the left cerebral cortex, explaining it, defining it, getting it clear,
Comparing
wanting
it,
yes, exactly.
measuring it.
All of that. Which has led, to some remarkable things like the development of mathematics.
Oh, yes.
Mathematics is the most exact language that human beings speak. It is a really remarkably exact language. And yet it still can't capture the truth.
Yeah, a hammer is a great tool, but I'm not going to ask it what reality is, right? Or what,
Nope.
right? It's a great tool, but it's not where you're going to find what you're looking for.
Right. Okay, I have 8:24. That gives us time to read this next poem, and then we'll start with it again next week. We can discuss it a little. Heidi, would you read the next poem, please?
I'd be happy to. Could you wait till 4? My understanding used to be like a stream that easily described all along the bank as its kin moved through the world. When I entered God, my vision became like his. It flooded out over existence. I knew no limits. The future I can now see with as much certainty as the past. If I stretched my arm its full length, I could caress any creature in this universe. And Rabia does not exaggerate. Thus, going to bed one night, I knew a thief would be breaking in at 3 a.m. So I wrote a note and put it on my door that said, could you wait till 4? For the passion in prayers usually starts to wane by then. Could you wait till 4? My understanding used to be like a stream that easily described all along the bank as its kin moved through the world. When I entered God, my vision became like his. It flooded out over existence. I knew no limits. The future I can now see with as much certainty as the past. If I stretched my arm its full length, I could caress any creature in the universe. And Rabia does not exaggerate. Thus, going to bed one night, I knew a thief would be breaking in at 3 a.m. So I wrote a note and put it on my door that said, could you wait till 4? For the passionate prayers usually starts to wane by then. Oh, that's great.
There's so much is said in this poem. Well, I mean, this is talk about compact. This is just astounding. What's in these few lines?
Well, and I like that she starts with saying that my understanding used to be like a stream that easily described all along the bank. So again, this idea of the description, the interpretation, the words, right? But then the limited, and then when I entered God, my vision became like his and knew no limits.
Mm-hmm. And then she says, if I stretched my arm its full length, I could caress any creature in this universe. And Rabia does not exaggerate. She can caress us right now, this minute. Because where would she go? She's not gone anywhere. Where would she go? And I just love it that she says right out loud, and Rabia does not exaggerate. And I love these lines, as you said, Jeffrey, describing the ordinary reality. She said, all along the bank, as its ken, K-E-N. K-E-N means our sensorial, perceptual understanding of the world. I ken that.
Thank you for that.
I know that in that way, our sensorial. So as it's ken, and I just love the fact that that is the word that Ladinsky used. As it's ken moved through the world. That's what we do. Our sensorial perception, understanding. It's the perfect description for the left mind and left limbic system. But then it says, when I entered God, anything else from anyone?
Well, you have to applaud her commitment to prayer. Her commitment to truth. She's like, listen, I know you're going to break in, no problem with that, but could it wait 1 hour? Because my commitment to truth is just that strong. That,
Yeah.
I thought that was quite quite
Well,
little.
it's very typical among the Sufis as well as many in other traditions, the Catholic tradition and the Hindu tradition, to wake up at 3 a.m. and practice prayer and contemplation and meditation during that next hour. And the Sufis, and she was a Sufi.
But that was more valuable than any of her possessions.
Yes.
Anything you could break in, steal it. I don't need it. But this, waiting at, I think that's so striking.
Right. I agree entirely. Because this is where she enters God.
And how does she know a thief's going to be breaking in at 3 a.m. and puts a note on the door asking him to wait till 4?
She says, the future I can see with as much certainty as the past.
She knows. So she knows.
She says, when I entered God, my vision became like his, infinite.
Yeah.
No. And then she says, and this is her promise to us, if I stretched my arm its full length, I could caress any creature in the universe. And Rabia does not exaggerate. And what are we told by all of the great teachers? Ask. Ask and ye shall receive. So that's in a way what we're doing when we study and talk about Rabia this way, is we're inviting her into our hearts, inviting her into our being. And she is instructing us. And that's one of the reasons she starts this book. I'm convinced of it, that there's nothing accidental, not one little tiny bit that's accidental about Ladinsky's book. Rabia starts this book not only because she speaks to us from what seems to be so long ago, but she definitely can touch us and promises to.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I saw that Shanti had a hand up for a question, but then she took it out. Unless she wants to ask her question, I do have a comment.
Well,
Shanti?
Shanti, do you have a question? Please, somebody will have to read it to me, or have you already posted it? I see there's two things in the chat.
It says I do not have the book, but he did mention the witching hour, the holy hour, if there is a limitation to connection.
No, there's no limitation to connection. It's just said that 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. are especially auspicious hours for practicing meditation, contemplation, prayer, and meditation. That's what's said in the scriptures of, well, at least 3 traditions that I know of. The Sufis, the so-called Hindus, or the Sanatana Dharma tradition, and the Catholics. The Catholics also practice getting up, particularly those who are practicing the devotional path and literally yearn to weep for a relationship with God. They get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and have an hour of prayer and contemplation and meditation.
Also, I think her question is, if there's somebody with cognitive physical limitation, would that affect meditation access?
Would you read it again, please?
Yeah. If there is, like Jill Bolti Taylor, who had an injury, there is limitation. Does that limit physical injury? Does that limit? So basically, if there is a cognitive physical limitation, does that affect meditation access?
No.
Is asking enough?
And the answer emphatically is, Shanti, there is no limitation. The reason being that all of these cognitive and physical things are things of the body. The truth of your being is not the body. So the question is asking enough? Yes. Emphatically, triple underlined, yes. You must be persistent. You must clear the path, as the teacher who founded this place taught his students. You must clear the path so that there are no obstructions of self-pity, hatred, anguish about your situation. But what you do to rid yourself of those is to ask also. That's where you start your asking. What Sri Ramakrishna said is take your negative, take your positive, and he listed a number of aspects of the duality. Take your vice, take your virtue, and give me pure love for thee. And so that's where you start, is asking for that pure love rather than any of the duality. I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. This good thing happened to me, that bad thing happened to me. So is asking enough? Jesus could not have been more explicit when he said, ask and ye shall receive. If you ask for your father for bread, if you ask your father for bread, will he give you a stone? If you ask for a fish, will he give you a serpent? No. And then he says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you. Notice no lack, no qualification. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you. Now, is that an easy thing to do? Of course not. For someone with cognitive and physical difficulties, it may be more difficult. But is the answer asking? The answer to your question is yes.
She replies, triple thank you. I understand completely. I have not felt worthy of asking, but now I see that as the barrier I must pray for remission from. Thank you so much.
Yes, and in this book we will hear, Shanti, in this book we will hear that all of these saints in one way or another had this feeling of unworthiness. At some point they felt that they weren't worthy of God's kiss, if you will.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I had a comment that the thief breaking in at 3 a.m., perhaps she's not referring to an actual, like a physical thief. It may be intruding thoughts to stay away, because they do come in like a thief, and she says, wait till 4, let me finish my prayers, then you can break in.
Well, dear, each of us is completely able to hear what we hear in these poems. So your hearing that says a world about you. Yes, that is a very capable and inspiring reading. Whether she's telling us a literal truth that she really did see that there was going to be but you know, Rabia is always, there's always she's always just about winking at us and smiling. So is it a literal truth or a metaphorical truth? Each of us can hear it as we will. For me, I prefer to hear it as Jeffrey heard it. There's nothing in here that the thief can take that I have any that matters to me that much. But oh, please wait till 4 o'clock to come in and take it, because you know I'm busy from 3 till 4 or whatever it is until 4 o'clock.
Oh, I do wish I could put a note on the door to keep my intruding thief thoughts away. And that will work.
That's exactly what Turiyananda told his disciple to do. Just stop it, he said. Just he didn't say these words, but it added up to the same thing. Just put a note on your mind's door that says, "No entry now. You will have to wait. I'll deal with you later." But that's what he said, and this he said to him in quite a loud voice on a street in New York, because his disciple was complaining about thoughts breaking in. And Turiyananda just shouted at him, "Then just stop it." So, dear hearts, so good to gather with you this way. I was feeling just, the body was just feeling kind of weary and a little dispirited when we started this evening. And boy, does being with you change all that. It's so beautiful. So until next week, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen, amen, amen. So until next week, dear ones, or until you join us, if you're going to join us for any of the other classes during the week, but especially those of you who come on Monday, Jai, 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 Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe, may we be cheerful, may we be healthy, may we have peace of mind, may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. May we nurse from that breast in the sky. Any final thoughts from anyone?
Thank you, Brother Shankara. You've given us a lot to think about for the week. Thank you. You've given us a lot to think about for the whole week.
Oh my goodness. Remember, it's not me, it's the poet. We just react. We just say what arises in us as a result. It's Rabia that gives us so much to think about. And she's speaking as the poem, as the title of the book tells us, she is speaking as God. These are love poems from God. So, Jai Rabia. All glory to Rabia. I take the dust of her feet. So, until next time, dears, good night.
Thank
so
you.
much. Good
Thank
night,
you so
everyone.
much. Good night, everyone.
Namaste.